What is up guys, Taiki here. Welcome to the State of DeFi report for February 7th. So if you like the content, please like and subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section below. Link to the premium Discord is in the description below as well. So 2023 has certainly been a very eventful year. So we'll get right into it, right? I have many thoughts on this topic in terms of the things that's been popping up so far, as well as like my performance, but we'll get right into that. None of this financial advice. These are my thoughts as of February 7th. So if you're watching this video a week from now, my thoughts have changed. I hold GMX, FXS, and XMON. Really haven't changed. Looking back to, I guess, like the past 7 months, I really haven't done anything, right? Basically, I thought the bottom was in July because, post 3AC, I thought that level of selling cannot be matched, right? Celsius, Voyager, 3AC, yada, yada, yada. Of course, I was incorrect because FTX, right, that put in new lows for BTC and various other altcoins, but it put in higher lows, or it did not put in new lows for ETH. So maybe I was like partially correct, but it doesn't really matter, right? Basically, my mindset since July of last year was to just, okay, this is going to be the time to accumulate. I'm going to just buy altcoins and majors and things I like, and I have to do so with the mindset of, just at least hold it for like a year, or like, just like a multi-month time horizon, because I have no idea when the bull market's going to be back. I have no idea when capital is going to flow. So the best thing I can do is just slowly allocate to the things I like and just let it ride. And that's been my mindset, just let everything ride. I really haven't thought about selling. I'm just in like just hodl mode, I guess. Of course, I don't want to say that because, I have to sell at some point, right? And like, de-risk and whatnot. But I think everyone has 2022 PTSD. I certainly do too. And I feel like I have to like shift my brain a little bit because I think there's a reasonable chance that, November was the bottom. I'm certainly positioned for November to be the bottom. When the facts change or the data changes, I have to pivot. But I think we're all in crypto for the multiples that it can give us. And if you don't really have high conviction in some of the coins you hold, if you're just trying to play quick narratives, flips, right? If you're good at things like that, I think, you should do so, right? Money is money. But for me, I still have a little bit of trouble pivoting to just like the YOLO narrative trader mindset. This kind of makes me sound conservative, but you can argue that like my portfolio is pretty degen because cash actually today, after GMX and FXS went up, is actually like the lowest position right now in my portfolio, even though that wasn't really the case like 2 weeks ago. So I'm pretty allocated, but how I'm allocated is up to question, and I really have to reevaluate in the coming weeks, coming months. But maybe even that's slow, right? Because crypto moves so fast, and I feel like 2022, there was like no need for anyone to move fast because things were just going down. But when things start to pick up, when things start to go up, I feel like we all have to feel kind of rushed, right? And even I feel this level of imposter syndrome where I'm like, okay, like what am I doing? Like, are my views on the market incorrect? How are they incorrect? Why are they incorrect? Does it just need time? So I toggle with these questions every single day, every single week, especially because I'm so like transparent with like everything I do, and like that also opens me to criticism, which is basically the criticism that people have is like my biggest altcoin position is XMON, and it's been it's like up like 2x this year, but like from where it was like previously, it's like not really doing that well, and compared to things like CANTO, liquid staking derivatives, like random arbitrage altcoins, it's I really feel like I'm misallocated, but I'll talk about all those bags later down the line. So I think one thing we're all looking for is some form of a pullback. Literally we've been up only, right? I think the biggest pullback was like 6 or 7%, not even like a 10%. But I think we all know that it's coming. But you also have to think about market psychology, right? If everyone thinks it's coming, and if everyone is like willing to buy the pullback, then chances are people are positioned to buy a pullback. They have some cash that they're willing to deploy, and if the markets keep going up, then they're going to be forced to buy. And that's kind of what we see because crypto is very reflexive, which we will talk about later down the line, or later in the video. So I think one sign that we would like to see is some FUD happen, leading to price of Bitcoin or Ether going down, and then having that dip bought up immediately. A lot of people compare the market structure now to that of 2019, right? people call it the echo bubble, the 4-year cycle, whatever it is. I don't think it really matters, right? It just, played the market. But, back in April of 2019, right, April 25th, the New York prosecutors alleged that Bitfinex covered almost $1 billion loss using Tether funds. And this obviously caused some FUD, and it led to the price of Bitcoin going down by roughly 14% in a couple of days. Obviously, in hindsight, right, like that did got bought up in like 10 days, and we were putting in new local highs afterwards. And this is a sign of a strong market. In bear markets bottom on bad news, because if there's bad news and it doesn't bring in incremental sellers, then chances are, there are not that many sellers left. And on a similar note, if good news does not bring in higher prices, that tends to mark a top, because if there are no incremental buyers on good news, then chances are there are no more incremental buyers. And honestly, because we're so low, right, in terms of price points in crypto, I think the biggest signal that we can look at is whenever there's bad news, is it going to be bought up? And so far, it's been the case. In the case of the Genesis bankruptcy, I think price pulled back like 6%. Immediately just went up. The screenshot's a little outdated, but prices are like roughly in the same area now. And I think yesterday or 2 days ago, there was like the Binance banking FUD, and there's like the DCG Genesis FUD. Oh my God, they're gonna unwind BTC to 5K, but it sounds like it's not gonna happen. And I feel like a lot of people were looking into Genesis as like the last domino to fall, but if that last domino isn't falling, or even if the fall is delayed like a couple of years, crypto doesn't really care about that, right? And in the short term, what matters to price is the marginal buyers and sellers. And obviously, for certain narratives, there are a lot more buyers, right? There are a lot more buyers than sellers, and like I mentioned, I'm in this let it ride mindset. I am definitely underperforming, like the narrative traders. I think for me, I am because I'm just like so long. Yeah, because I'm just so long. I feel like so long is kind of relative, right? Maybe I'm like not that long, but in my mind, I'm pretty long. I feel like I'm definitely outperforming, right? Like the average person. But in terms of like the amount of risk I'm taking on, I'm definitely underperforming, right? I feel like I'm probably like in the 20th percentile in terms of given the amount of risk that this whatever person is taking, the expected return should be much higher than like whatever I've gained so far, and that's definitely frustrating. And I need to get better at that. And maybe I'm like too slow to act, or maybe I should be patient. These questions, right? Like we ask ourselves every day. There's so much FOMO that happens, and I feel like the markets are really, good at making you feel bad for missing pumps. I definitely feel bad, right? Because that's kind of my thing. I try to catch things, but I think it's fine. I think we're all working on our own timeline. My personal timeline is like multi-month, but in the short term, it's like, oh my God, like everything's pumping. Like, what do I do? So I'm kind of sticking to my strategy so far, right? That maximizes my sleep-adjusted returns. And like my strategy probably different from your strategy. Everyone should try to have their own timeline. You don't have to, outperform all the traders, because that's impossible. And most people end up overtrade and get wrecked in like gas, slippage fees, DEX fees, and whatnot. But maybe I'm just coping, right? Because I hold a bunch of XMON. Maybe this is my version of Stockholm syndrome, where I'm justifying, holding certain things because it will one day pump. But if it never pumps, then what am I doing, right? And one data point I want to share with you is Stablecoin Flows. So this is for centralized stablecoins, USDC, Tether, and BUSD. I think it's a good indicator for retail sentiment, because if centralized stablecoin market caps are going down, then chances are people are bridging USDC and back to fiat because they hate crypto, right? They don't want to buy crypto, they want to sell crypto. But if money is flowing back, then chances are people are bridging fiat to centralized exchanges, to either coins or to bridge onto the chain to use DeFi or NFTs. And I started tracking this after FTX, and in the month of November, very red, right? People just leaving money out of the ecosystem. Like I'm in some crypto OG chats, and after FTX, some of the OGs were literally pulling USDC out into their bank accounts because they just did not trust it anymore. And now these people are trying to frantically bridge back. So I feel like that's definitely in the stage of the cycle we're in. I still feel like people are still trying to figure out how to position. So I think there are naturally going to be more inflows into the markets than outflows. But we'll see, right? So November, pretty bad. December, also bad, right? Just sentiment really bad, nothing's happening. But I think one thing I mentioned like last month was like, or in December was, chances are crypto teams are waiting for like the new year to like launch stuff. Because if some coin pumps in December, then people might sell it for like tax purposes. But if something pumps in January, then there's like less reasons to sell. And like why not, right? But we kind of saw this issue just like on social media and stuff. But December pretty bad. The first week of January also bad. But I think that's when LDO started like going up 2x. Like various narratives started popping up, and then following the second week of January, you can kind of, these numbers aren't that big, but you can kind of see like a trend shift, right? Like November and December, just very red. And then in January, or in the latter half of January and beyond, we're starting to see more green days. So I think this is a positive sign if you're a bull. And I'm definitely monitoring this and saying, hey, like this is good, right? This is good for my bags. Or maybe not all my bags, but some of my bags. In terms of like my report card, I'll probably give myself like a C or C plus or something, right? I think I've had this let it ride mindset and just like accumulate things since July of last year, which is good. But maybe I should have been more nimble. But also like I mentioned, I feel like it's just best to work on your own timeline. I just feel like because I'm like almost like 24/7 into the space, I just like kick myself for the underperforming. But I think that's fine, right? We should all do our own thing. Biggest altcoin bag is XMON, gross. But I'll talk about like my bull case for it in the latter half of the video. This is like a play for me for. I'll talk about that later actually. Missing out on narratives, not happy, but I'm okay with it. If we are entering a bull market, at least like a multi-month bull market, then there's no rush to like pump it, like FOMO into things now. Chances are next month there are going to be different narratives that we can hop onto. But like I mentioned, right? I feel like my brain is still in like 2022 mode. I think a lot of people are, and obviously the people that had the most gain is just going max long. And I feel like I need to trigger the 2021 side of my brain again. I don't know where it's gone. I feel like it's left me like sometime in like September last year. Like the bull mode brain is like is gone, right? It's like I pooped it out or something. But I need to find that thing. But in no rush is what I tell myself. And let's talk about like why these narratives work so well, and we'll talk about the reflexivity of these DeFi narratives. And reflexivity is a theory coined by George Soros, where and this is like a pretty self-explanatory chart where if price goes up, then the perception around whatever project or coin goes up, and if the perception of the coin looks better, then the fundamentals just marginally get better. And if the fundamentals, right, if people think the fundamentals are better, then the price goes up and people buy, and you kind of create this reflexive loop. And in a bear market, this works to the downside, where when price goes down, yield goes down because most yield in crypto is paid in crypto tokens. And when the yields go down, money leaves, therefore lowering TVL, then the fundamentals look worse, so people sell. And when people sell, price goes down, and then it kind of creates this reflexive loop. And at the bottom, the sentiment is DeFi is dead, yield farming is dead, fundamentals are so bad, LOL. And I do admit, like I think most forms of farming is like behind us, right? As in, it's not going to recover. I think 2023 and beyond, I think different types of farming models has to be built that are more sustainable, and because people know how to play the game, right? Like chances are, like if some random like Ohm fork launches on like some L1, it's not going to work because everyone knows how the game is played. And obviously on the converse, bull market reflexivity is what we're experiencing now, where price goes up, then the yields go up, token looks attractive, then people buy, TVL goes up because TVL is calculated by crypto token prices, right? And then people buy, the fundamentals look better, perception looks better, and you kind of create this reflexive loop, and people say follow the yield, buy, like what am I, like come on bros, I'm getting paid 1% in this token that goes up 10% every single day, and I'm like, oh my god, like what am I doing, right? And that's kind of like the FOMO that the crypto markets build. I think the most value add I think I can give you is to just be aware of this. So, just be aware that at the bottom, just things look really, really bad. But, you should also be forward looking and look to the other side and say that, okay, like when the markets do recover, like what kind of token models are sustainable? Like, can this type of product, can this type of yield product work? And once one starts going up, then you get to reap the benefits. But also on the other hand, if prices for like random tokens are like pumping like 5x, but that token model or the yield model is not sustainable, then sure, it looks great now because it's very inflationary, the token price is very high. But once like 5 people start selling, right, 5 big holders start to sell, then price goes down 30%, and then you have to question the fundamentals of these tokens. So just be aware of these things, the reflexivity in crypto, and this is why price can go down a lot lower than you can expect, and price can go a lot higher than you can expect. And I'm certainly and we're definitely experiencing that right now. So let's talk about some of the narratives. And I'll get started on LSD because I've covered this before, and I think I have some stuff. Yeah, so I think 3 weeks ago I mentioned this topic. I think over half the move in Lido ETH in Q1 has already played out. So I think there's still upside in things like Lido, but I'm not sure if I can justify buying Lido at the time of recording because there's too much fast money in this. And when I say too much fast money, I just mean that there's a bunch of people that bought Lido in January thinking that they can sell sometime in March and just get like a quick 2x. Obviously, I don't really know the distribution of the holder base. Of course, the majority of the coins are in like the hands of VCs and whatnot. But I don't really know what the VCs are planning to do. So there's like no point for me trying to catch these things. But one of the things I was looking at, actually, let's actually pull this up because this chart looks a lot different now. And this is like one of so basically for Lido, I was kind of tracking this, right, for Lido ETH, and this is like one of the reasons I was a little bit more skeptical, where Lido tends, or this is the Lido ETH chart, right, so the price of Lido divided by the price of ETH. So Lido tends to go up a lot, right, it tends to have these quick pumps, and then it kind of gets distributed, or a very slow distribution. So quick pump, slow distribution, quick pump, and maybe we're going to see some slow distribution. But obviously, Lido ETH is up 15% today, so this chart definitely looks incorrect. And I really do have to reevaluate my entire views on the markets because Lido ETH, it's not putting in higher highs in the in the USD pair, but if there's anything that can break this pattern, it's going to be the Shanghai withdrawals coming in March. My view has been that if I'm gonna buy into LSD narrative, I'd rather do just buy FXS, because if Lido goes up, then FXS will also go up, which is kind of what we're happening here. And FXS was up 21% yesterday. Obviously, it's underperforming today. So, and the reason for that is if everyone is too focused on or too all in on the LSD narrative and it dies, of course FXS would die, but at least for FXS, you kind of have this supply. Frac seed supply going up, and FXS is also a bet on DeFi infrastructure, in my opinion. So it's not purely an LSD narrative. You also get to invest in I guess the Frac stablecoin, Frac sign and whatnot. They're doing other things such as trying to replace wheat, right? Creating a wheat R replacement. And how Frac seed works is as more and more Frac seed enters circulation that isn't staked, right, to earn the validator reward, it increases the yield for the staked Frac seed. And it kind of creates this flywheel. And if you want to talk about reflexivity, right, of crypto narratives, FXS is definitely one of it, right? But it's this probably might break. I'll talk about this later. But definitely a very interesting chart for Lido ETH. Where is it? Right here. Yeah. So can this be broken? Probably. But for me, I don't want to buy Lido. It's already a top 30 coin. So I'm not really sure how much upside is left. Maybe a 2x. But even then, right? I feel like I'd rather buy into FXS. But I'm biased, and I own FXS. I don't own Lido. So obviously, take it with a grain of salt. So let's talk about other stuff like GNS. So GNS, very impressive. I think it's $8 today. Which is really, really insane. I covered this first in September. It was under $2, and I bought this at 175. Then I sold it at 350-ish. I got a 2x, and then I was okay, cool. I'm gonna buy more GMX, right? That's GMX is higher quality. I still think GMX is higher quality, but you can't really fade the data. As I wait for this chart to look, okay, there you go, right? This is very, very impressive, and in hindsight, it's very obvious. Currently, they have this $100,000 trading competition on Arbitrum, which is boosting the volume. The daily trade volume doing well. Daily traders looking pretty good, And yeah, this is like the most bullish thing. So Arbitrum dropped in basically like the end of December, and it's already doing like 69% of the volume relative to Polygon. So I mean, Arbitrum definitely feels like the hub of DeFi, and it's definitely doing well. And while we're on a similar note, we'll also talk about GMX. So GMX has had some FUD, I guess. I mean, I'm not really sure what the FUD is. Let's actually refresh this. So GMX fees has been kind of going down, but I'll give you my reasons on why I think that's not that big of a problem. And one of the FUD around GLP and GMX is around Andrew King. So Andrew King is like some dude on Twitter. He has like a fund. He has like this personal public address, and he's like gigalong the majors, and he's up like many millions, right? So basically, he's up like that much on Avalanche, and then on Arbitrum, I think he's up like $12 million total. Actually, probably more, like 15 million or like whatever it is, right? Basically, he's up a lot, and obviously the value is going to come out of GLP, and that's going to be a point for the bears, I guess, in terms of, ooh, GLP gets wrecked in a bull market. But yeah, I think ultimately everyone knows that GLP is going to underperform in like a raging bull market, because it's like 50% stablecoins and retail tends to skew long. So if prices are going up, then GLP gets wrecked. But I think the most important data to look at is the green line. So this is GLP supply. And as long as the current GLP holders aren't leaving, despite traders winning money, and actually more people are buying into GLP, the so-called death spiral isn't really going to happen. And as you can see, like the majority of the traders since basically the middle of January has been very, very long, as indicated by Mr. Andrew King. One thing that people aren't looking at, this is like the bull case that I think can propel GMX to like, let's say $1 billion market cap, is how the fees are distributed. So if you don't know, 70% of the fees go to GLP and 30% of fees go to GMX. And GMX only realizes those fees when traders close their position. So Andrew King has had this position open for, I don't even know how long. I mean, there's a lot of history here, because he was like short in December, and then at some point he like flipped giga long, right? So good for him. Yeah, he was. I mean, it doesn't matter. Actually, let's find this out. So yeah, I think he got liquidated, and then he just like turned max long. So basically since January 9th, I think. So going back to here, so all these fees have been accumulating since January 9th, basically. So basically a month. And once he closes his position, I mean, we don't know when he's going to close. I know him, and he's like, super bullish, right? He's like beyond bullish. He's like mega bull. I mean, obviously he's like giga long, right? So I have no idea when he's going to close it. But basically, on his ETH long on Arbitrum, he's paid $2 million in fees and $1 million, right? So that's $3 million in fees on Arbitrum side. So when he closes his position, that's going to go to GLP and GMX. And on Arbitrum, Avalanche, $500,000, okay, like 1.3 million, let's say. So Andrew King alone has $4.3 million in fees. So if he just closes all his position, let's say in a few weeks or maybe in like a month or so, right? Like whenever it is, there's a chance that GMX might hit like more fees than Ethereum. Obviously, it kind of depends how it gets there, and whether or not he does it all at once. But I think if it happens, it's gonna obviously be like the highest fee day for GMX. The GMX APR is probably gonna be like 50%, even though it's only going to be live for like a week. And I think that can actually propel the reflexive narrative to ultimately get GMX to the 9-figure market cap mark. Because if you think about it, if GMX can 2x in a bear market, in the 2022 bear market, then why can't it do better in a raging bull market? Or even if it's not like a raging bull market, right? Like as long as we don't see a repeat of 2022, I'm sure GMX can at least do a 2x this year. I think it's almost up 2x already. But it's definitely something interesting to watch. So cool. I think that's all I wanted to cover. There's also like Arbitrum coins popping off. But I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. I just want to talk about CANTO first, because I really CANTO believe it. Obviously, I hold zero exposure. I am on the sidelines, but I will talk positively on this token, so don't worry. I covered this back in November 17th, and I mentioned that CANTO is this EVM chain on Cosmos. They're probably going to get more traction than Evmos. They're the antithesis of Aptos. 90% of the supply is going to the community, and all the applications are free public infrastructure, as in they don't take in fees. and they have this thing called contract secured revenue, where I think 20 or 30%, or somewhere along those lines, 20 or 30% of those fees go to the devs. So the devs are incentivized to create good applications, but that don't take in fees. So, a better user experience for people, which I think is interesting. I mean, Phantom and Near also does this, but I think the bull case for CANTO was building a really strong community around it. At the time, I said $63 million market cap for this might seem a little excessive, and the bull case is for a loyal community to form towards a shared vision. Obviously, in hindsight, $63 million was very cheap, but the bull case was for a strong community to form, and the strong community is forming. So I definitely have to change my tune and be more optimistic on CANTO. I mean, which I definitely am, even though I hold 0. I like the ethos. And things like this has been tried before, but I think the one thing CANTO has going for it is like the super strong community, the bootstrap community. I think the benefit of CANTO is that really no one really knows how to value this thing. And if there are no valuation models for particular tokens, then anyone can just justify any price. If someone just says CANTO should be 1% of the market cap of Ethereum, then that should be like a $2 billion CANTO, like a market cap CANTO, and then you can justify whatever price. I think one of the bull cases for CANTO is no one knows how to value CANTO, right? It's like I CANTO value CANTO, so that's ultimately going to be a natural bull case, and the price looks like this, phenomenal. What is this? Like the reverse McDonald's, like the Kim Kardashian double bottom, whatever it is, it's very, very bullish, and I am on the sidelines watching in awe, feeling like I'm underperforming everyone. Unfortunate. And CANTO network fees going up and up. There are new applications launching almost every single day. Bridging is up and up. Of course, this is cumulative volume, so it doesn't take into account people bridging out, but chances are if people are bridging into the ecosystem, what are they buying? The application tokens on CANTO make no money, so chances are no one's going to buy that. So if people are bridging, they're going to buy CANTO and or CANTO NFTs. And CANTO NFTs have been doing really, really well. And hopefully it can be beginning of an NFT bull market. And also if you go to the Alto market, I think the website is alto.build. They have this elevator music, and it's really nice. I think every single application should have their own elevator music. I think it really adds class A. And I feel like the CANTO bull market was catalyzed by this Variant post. So they're like a VC. They raised almost $500 million. I actually really respect Variant. I think Variant and Paradigm are the two VCs I really respect because they actually try to provide value for their project. Maybe I'm biased, but I really like the Variant people, and they really they basically compared CANTO, or buying CANTO similar to buying land in California in the 1900s, and this meme has really perforated all over the ecosystem, and people are saying, hey, welcome to California, welcome to Web Plus, let's go west, and it's definitely crazy because you go back to the chart, January 19th was this candle, and as soon as they posted this article, right, it's up only, right, up only to the right, and the liquidity profile, 34 million, very liquid, so it's not it's some random altcoin with 0 liquidity pumping because insiders are pumping it or whatever. I don't really know. I doubt insiders are pumping this, but basically it's a very liquid token and it's going up. So a lot of people can benefit from this, right? Really cool stuff. And why can't Variant pump my bags, right? Because my bags are not pumping, or some of them are pumping, but not as much, and it makes me sad. Maybe, right? Maybe all the Variant people are bull posting SUDO now, and I'm okay, maybe they can expand to Pseudofornia, but time will tell. This is just my copium. This is my version of coping with holding a bunch of XMON. So let's talk about Blur and the SUDO bull case. I kind of talked about this in the previous video, but I think as we approach the February 14th timeline, it becomes more apparent, and this is my bet on SUDO, right? Once NFTs pick up, I think NFT marketplace tokens will do really well, because we just talked about how reflexive narratives are in DeFi, but I think NFTs are way more reflexive, than DeFi, right? Because price goes up for a particular project, and then perception of that project looks better, right? It's X $1,000 for for this, right? It's I think I spent $7,000 on this penguin. Can I justify that? Probably not. Am I happy with it? Kind of. And yeah, like I have no idea how to justify this, right? But when price goes up for NFTs, like the fundamentals look a lot better, and it really creates this reflexive loop. And that's, I think NFTs are gonna have like crazy boom and bust cycles for like the next 5 years, to be honest, but maybe 10 years, to be honest. And it's, I think anyone that masters NFTs in the next couple of years probably gonna make it out pretty fine in crypto, probably. There's been this myth, I guess it's not really a myth, but this assumption that NFTs cannot pump in a bull market, or like when ETH is pumping, because if ETH is pumping, then people want to sell their NFTs back into Ether, to play the USD appreciation and whatnot. And if you look at the data, this is from Crypto Kalio's Twitter channel, so tip of the hat to him. But this is comparing, I guess, like the market structure to the summer of 2021. So following the July bottom, so the market bottomed in the latter half of July, and there's literally up only, right? Look at this, up only. Look at this price of ETH from like 1600 to like 2x in straight line, basically. And how NFTs performed is in the month of July, you can see that the volume for NFTs were very low. So, but if you compare it to August, it was very, very high. So I think for NFTs, I think prices for crypto assets in general has to go up enough, and then the general market has to feel the general market has to have like a better appetite for risk, because NFTs are furthest out in the risk curve. So like if people think that crypto is bottoming, like people don't bid NFTs first, right? They bid Bitcoin and Ether, and then they buy altcoins, and then they might buy NFTs. And we're kind of seeing this where Bitcoin and Ether put in some God candles, then LDO and FXS putting God candles, now CANTO's putting in God candles. And I feel like at some point, like that's going to trickle down into NFTs, and then at that point, NFT marketplace tokens will do well. But this is like my hopium, right? We have these narratives around like Web2 companies entering crypto, Amazon doing NFTs in April. Like who knows? Like, is Amazon dropping NFTs for like Prime subscribers? Like, are they going to buy Pudgy Penguins? Definitely not. But it could be a strong narrative. That's one. Even Bitcoin, right? The Bitcoin NFTs are starting to pop off. People view Bitcoin as a pet rock. It's literally a rock. But if you think about the bear case of BTC, it's like at some point the miner issuance isn't going to subsidize. The miners might leave, right? If the issuance just keeps going down and no one uses like Bitcoin, and the transaction fees don't compensate for it. But if Bitcoin NFTs can actually start to have value and people speculate on it, maybe there's going to be like more demand to buy BTC, or the narrative for BTC definitely improves. I'm not like an expert as in like how do they do this? They're called ordinals. People view them as NFTs, but I think it's like done differently. I think I'm not going to talk about this because I have no idea. Like I'm not an expert on this topic, but Bitcoin NFTs kind of a thing. There's also this trend towards open edition NFTs, and open editions are basically these. They're usually an uncapped supply, low cost mint where they're all fungible, so everyone's buying like the same image, but it gives like a lower cost of entry, and because creator royalties tend to be going towards zero over time. Creators have to pivot by maybe instead of like doing free mints and like trying to charge royalties, maybe it's better to give access to NFTs to a bunch of people for like, let's say $10, and maybe some people pay royalties, and if the NFT appreciates, then it's all gravy because they collect royalties, and they also collect a bunch of money upfront to support creators and whatnot. So this is Manifold XYZ, not the MEV Manifold, but the NFT Manifold. There's like two same projects with the same name. Crypto projects should definitely try not to have the same name as like other projects, but you can kind of see the total claims over time going up. And because Manifold NFTs, open edition NFTs are all fungible, I think they can be traded really well on particular, on NFT AMMs, which is SUDO. And the biggest one is called Checks. So this was an $8 mint, and it's 2.2 ETH floor, which is really, really insane. So it's like this, let's kind of look at this. So it's like this 8x10 grid of like check marks, and they're they're kind of like joking at like the Twitter $8 Twitter blue thing, right? That Elon provided. And the beauty of this is I think the Jeff Butcher, I think that's his name. He can change the metadata on like the color of these checks. So I feel like every other day, the images of these checks are like changing. I think yesterday it was something else. I don't even know what it was, but now it looks like some alien punk thing. And I mean, this was literally an $8 mint, and I don't think there was a cap supply in terms of, or there's like a max mint amount. Maybe the max mint amount was like 10, but you can do it on like multiple wallets, right? So there's definitely like some crazy fraud happening here, and like I mean, I get it, right? It's like maybe the Twitter $8 thing is a significant moment in our timeline, so these check marks mean something to our lives, and people are going to spend $4,000 on these. I mean, obviously, like after price goes up, it just looks a lot better. It's like, oh my god, like Jeff or Jack Butcher, like whatever, right? Mr. Butcher. He's like, he is the next Vitalik. He's the Vitalik of NFTs. He is the modern day Picasso, right? And then the price goes up, perception goes up, fundamentals look better, and like you see stuff like this going up. So I don't know what's going on. And let's talk about like the Blur and SUDO bull case, which I have been incorrect on, but my bull case is like this is essentially set up for like the latter half of Q1, which we're entering. So I think whether or not I'm right or wrong will depend on where we are at, let's say, the end of March. But basically, my bull case isn't really about, kind of a different take on how, like the bull cases for certain tokens, and why people buy. And from what I've observed, and I can empathize with this because I was definitely in this camp, 2020, 2021, 2022, where I'm bullish the NFT sector, but I don't really know what to buy. Of course, I bought my penguin. I have like 2 penguins, and I own a bunch of low pudgies and whatnot. But I think a lot of crypto people, DeFi people, like Bitcoin people, Ether people, they don't really want to try to pick an NFT. They prefer to buy like a liquid ERC20 version of a token that they can use as a proxy to bet on the growth of the entire NFT sector. So if you think about capital flows and how people are going to be allocated to crypto over the next 12 months, I feel like people are generally under allocated to NFTs, given I think where they're going. And I think more money has to flow into this space. Of course, maybe the majority of that flow goes into individual NFTs. That's totally fine. That's very, very healthy. But let's say 75% of the new money goes into NFTs to speculate and try things out. But I think there's going to be some percentage, like let's say 25% of new flows that are going to flow into NFT marketplace tokens, because people would rather buy fungible tokens than non-fungible tokens because of increased or there's like better liquidity conditions. So I think there's a case to be made for being bullish a quality NFT marketplace token that has sustainable models that can actually make money, that has a reasonable chance to compete with OpenSea. And for me, my bet is going to be on Blur and SUDO. Obviously, I own a bunch of SUDO. I do not own Blur because I don't do seed investments and the token is not live. But I might buy a Blur if it comes out, depending on the valuation. I don't know what the tokenomics are, so it's hard for me to be bullish. But I think the user experience, the UI is pretty good. And I think what could really propel NFTs is if Blur does liquidity mining after launch. This is not confirmed because they don't really tell us anything, but they're going to drop a token on the 14th, and I would assume that they're going to do some form of liquidity mining after. If they don't, then just ignore this part. But if they do, focus on this part, okay? Just focus on this part because I think it can actually create like crazy reflexivity in NFT land in the latter half of Q1. So I talked about this in my last month's video, but from what I've observed, after we enter like a contraction phase where price of crypto goes down and sentiment is very, very bad, something has to happen on chain for people to be incentivized to use a chain. Sure, like ETH, like on-chain activity right now is doing pretty well, but what needs to happen for ETH gas to be consistently at, let's say, over 80? Because we still haven't really seen that yet. And the liquidity mining bubbles thesis is similar to the humble farmer thesis that I coined sometime Q2 of 2021, where liquidity mining incentives, like if tokens are being emitted for a token that has some valuation model that is hard. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. If there are liquidity mining incentives for a particular token and there are no valuation models for the token, then similar to like the CANTO thesis, the sky is the limit. People can justify any valuation, and if token is going up and people are being paid to buy and sell NFTs or like do whatever things on chain, then things can get crazy. And we talked about the reflexivity of the NFTs. We can really see something like this happen where ETH goes up a lot, and then at some point risk enters back into the markets, creating some crazy NFT mania, which kind of goes into this reflexive flywheel effect. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for, and my version of allocating to NFTs is XMON and SUDO, because it's more liquid than like NFTs. I mean, I own Pudgy Penguins, but they're so illiquid, right? I mean, like, what the hell is this thing? We saw this in 2020, DeFi summer. Of course, we now know Compound to be like a governance token for this lending protocol, and no one gets excited about it. But at the time, like, people viewed Compound as the future of finance, and it's gonna flip. I don't know, like JP Morgan, like whatever, right? And everyone was like super hyped about this, and Compound was doing liquidity mining, and everyone aped in. Similarly with Matic and Avalanche. Right, I was covering this back then in 2021, but no one really knew how to value L1 tokens. I think people have a better idea now, given like the supply dynamics and the prominence of ETH2s and whatnot. But basically, people were just saying, hey, like Solana should be 10% of the market cap of Ethereum, and people were like just buying it hand over fist, right? And if you CANTO value CANTO, then chances are, right, more money might trickle into it. But you should also be aware that if CANTO price goes down 30%, the fundamentals are going to look a lot worse. But it's reflexive, and if you can play it, then you should play it. And I think what I've been looking forward to for like over a month now is the Blur launch. It's going to be on Valentine's Day. I'm not really sure how they're going to do it. I don't know what the token mix are, but I think Blur should be in the low 9-figure market cap. I think it should be above the valuation of Lux, and I think both SUDO and Bullish should be above the valuation of LuxRare. I know LuxRare has a bunch of seed investors and like influencers, but I don't think a viable competitor to OpenSea is going to be just like X2x2 LuxRare, where you basically just fork OpenSea and then introduce a token. I don't really think that's going to be a model that works. I think chances are the NFT AMM model or the Blur, like a completely different design, that's probably gonna eat into OpenSea's market share than something that's already played out. I think one counter argument around this liquidity mining bubbles thesis is LuxRare did liquidity mining sometime last year, and the market cap hit like $1 billion before just being down only. So maybe it already played out. But I think Blur and SUDO is more exciting because it's something that we really haven't seen before, and because sentiment is starting to pick up, right? People are starting to have more appetite for risk. I think a lot of money can flow into this segment because I think generally people are underallocated to NFTs or like that sector, and OpenSea, right, to protect their market share and their 2.5% marketplace fees, they started blocklisting marketplaces that didn't enforce royalties for all collections. And I think at some point Blur was doing more volume than OpenSea because Blur had 0 marketplace fees, and I think right now they charge 0.5% royalties for most collections. But OpenSea said, hey, we don't like you, block. But the workaround around this is Blur just created a new system building on top of Seaport, right, which is some marketplace API created by OpenSea, and OpenSea is built on Seaport, so and it's free, right, to use. So if Blur builds on top of Seaport, then there's no way for OpenSea to block them, right? So I believe royalties are still enforced for things like Sewer Pass, but from my understanding, I don't think Blur has to charge royalties for these collections if they didn't want to, right? If they just wanted to compete based on fees, they can just drop it to 0, and then they would basically capture all the volume. Because would you rather pay 0 fees to buy a Sewer Pass, or would you rather pay 5%, 2.5% to Yuga Labs and then 2.5% to OpenSea? I think most people, right, even if they support royalties, they care more about saving 5% on every purchase than, you know, just paying a bunch of fees and saying, hey, I care about creators. I'm not anti-royalties. I just think that the current royalties are just way too high. And natural forces, market forces are going to converge fees to zero. So, you know, like marketplaces have to adjust for that, and also creators. So that's how they do it. There's also like Magically, which is another NFT aggregator, previously called Alpha Sharks, doing liquidity mining. I mean, the token isn't live yet, right? But they're saying, hey, like use our platform and we'll give you tokens. For SUDO swap, obviously they're the NFT AMM model, and there's also a workaround around like the OpenSea block list. For example, Mr. Bursting Bagel. By the way, he is like, I think he's like a 19 or 20, right? And this guy is like throwing around 100 ETH and like surpass. Like what the hell is this guy, right? I'll link his thread in the description below if you're interested. I'm not gonna talk about it, but basically he like put 100 ETH, like made at least a 2x, made like 18,000% APR. So you know, the important thing for me is, yeah, SUDO's underperforming and maybe I'm just like incorrect, or I'm like misallocated. But the important thing to me is that SUDO is like a model that works. It just needs like more attention and education and incentivization, which I'm working on. And I think it's inevitable that SUDO swap takes more market share. It just takes time. And, you know, obviously like when everything else is going up, you know, telling myself to be patient doesn't feel great. But I guess it's like what I tell myself. Like I said, Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, and I guess like the way to go around royalties, right, is like, you know, royalties are not enforceable on chain, and, you know, SUDO swap is the only on-chain NFT marketplace, because, you know, Blur and, you know, Looks Rare and stuff, they store data off-chain. So I guess the only workaround around OpenSea's block list is to build on top of Seaport, which I guess makes sense. But, you know, for SUDO, right, it doesn't build on top of Seaport. It's like built on its own thing. So how you go around royalties is you can create a pool for an NFT, you know, just like create a wallet contract address, right? But with 0 NFTs, because if you try to make a pool with an NFT, OpenSea will block it. But if you make an empty pool, then OpenSea cannot block it. And then after you create a pool, you can send NFTs into that pool, right? So it's like similar to creating some, I don't know, like ERC20, like ETH USDC pool with $0, and then, you know, after you create it, like sending some ETH into there. Like, what's OpenSea going to do, right? Like prevent you from sending an NFT from one wallet to another, right? Like that doesn't even make any sense. So I think, you know, fees are going to converge to 0, which I think is going to be beneficial for everyone, for all traders and collectors. I don't know why it's not loading. Okay, so I guess that's like the end of the video. I don't know how long. Okay, it's like 40. Okay, it's pretty short actually, given it's a Taiki video. So I guess one final thing I'll add is, you know, I think post FTX, I basically made a pledge that, hey, you know, I feel like it's easy to, you know, make videos and criticize teams, you know, because they're not doing what I want them to do and whatever. But, you know, I feel like it's kind of hypocritical, right, to be in crypto, to buy tokens and just be angry at the team for like not letting your token, like making your token pump or whatever, right? Like, you know, I feel like we should all try to, you know, I don't know, like help teams succeed and whatnot. So I mentioned right last time that, you know, post FTX, I want to help teams really get their, you know, like help them grow, help them expand, and help with governance. Because I feel like, you know, I have many thoughts about certain things, but I don't really participate in governance. So, you know, I think in December, I wrote like a proposal thing on GMX on the forums, and I got pushed back for that, but it was fine, right? I just liked it for the experience. And, you know, in January, I've been pushing, or I guess in the month of February, I've been pushing for SUDO swap governance. So, I guess I have like the most amount of voting power because people are delegating to me. But in the name of, for the sake of decentralization, please, I mean, why are you delegating to me, right? Like, just delegate to someone else, or delegate to yourself, right? Like, you don't have to delegate to me. You can like vote yourself. But basically, I did this proposal to make SUDO transferable, which did not pass, which I think is fine. I think it's reasonable because for this proposal to pass, it had to hit 2.4 million votes. I think it says it. Yeah, so the quorum was 2.4 million, and at the time, there were only 3.2 million votes that were delegated, because I don't think that many people know how to like do on-chain governance. Even myself, right? I forgot to delegate for some of my tokens. So, you know, I guess this was like a way for me to get a gauge on, I guess, like the community, you know, how do you think about it? And right now, so like a week ago, I think there was like, 3.2 million tokens were delegated. Now it's 4 million. Of course, right? I mean, this should get like a lot higher, because right now, let's check. Roughly, let's just say 1,000 XMON has entered, or 1,000 XMON has been locked. Therefore, 10 million SUDO should be on the other side, on top of like airdrop tokens. So technically, there should be, or if everyone chooses to delegate, there should be like 11 million delegated tokens. So hopefully, you know, I'll do like a follow-up proposal probably this week, and then hopefully that vote passes. But you know, we have to wait and see. Definitely learned a lot with governance. One thing about governance is like it's impossible to make everyone happy. Like I'm in like there's like this, basically if you buy a 0 XMON's NFT, you get to join like this chat full of like SUDO whales and whatnot, and everyone has different incentives, right? Some people, like, they don't even own SUDO, and they own like a bunch of other tokens, and they want, you know, to pump their bags, so they're like, you know, against it, like whatever, like what some people are saying. And then other people, I mean, everyone has different incentives, and it's impossible for everyone to agree, and this is like why DAO proposals like take so long, like for it to happen, right? But you know, I understand that SUDO is trying to actually be a DAO, and maybe, you know, even though it's slow right now, maybe, you know, like a year from now, it's gonna have a lot, or 6-12 months from now, it's gonna you know, have more value because of how decentralized it is and how it can be listed on more exchanges and whatnot. But you know, this is like just my coping mechanism, because my bags are underperforming. But basically, right? Actually, let's go back on this. So helping with GMX, helping with that SUDO, and I'm also helping Frax with their own NFT project. So that's gonna be pretty cool. I don't know when it's gonna drop, but you know, I'm helping with that. So you know, I think everyone should try to participate in governance to some extent, even if, like, you know, you don't have that many votes. I still think it's worth like trying to just experience it yourself. It's similar to, you know, like what I mentioned in 2021. Hey, like just bridge to random L1, right, and just like try it out. Right, chances are you're going to be early, and you know, I think I learned a lot from that. And similarly, I think I'm going to learn a lot from participating in governance, connecting with a bunch of people. You know, people say like, you know, your net worth is your network, which is kind of cringe, but I think, you know, it's the only way to really connect with other people is to, you know, put your neck out on the line, open yourself up to criticism, just try to push for certain things to go. And if it doesn't pass, then like whatever, right? You iterate, you push again. If it passes, then great, right? I'm gonna be a part of history, I guess. So that's about it. I feel like this is gonna break, so congrats to the LDO holders. I just hold FXS, and I'm just a happy camper. Yeah. I guess I'll lastly talk about Bitcoin dominance, because I usually try to get to like an hour for these videos, so I have like some time. So let's just talk about this, because why not? So there's been a lot of arguments around Bitcoin dominance and how it has to go up because, like, whatever, right? Like Bitcoin dominance went up in 2019, so it has to happen in 2023. And I understand that argument, you know, because crypto is so cyclical. Maybe it makes sense to, you know, look into the past to infer what's going to happen to the future. But I don't think you can actually compare Bitcoin dominance, basically the market structure 4 years ago, to where it is now. Because back then, ETH was like this 2-digit shitcoin where, you know, a bunch of teams raised ETH for ICOs, and then when the price of Ether started going down, they were forced to sell, and 99% of these teams didn't really ship anything. But like now, if you go to ultrasound.money, right, ETH is, I mean, there's actually like natural demand to use a chain, right, for DeFi, for NFTs, and, you know, obviously you have the supply crunch and whatnot. But if you look at the 30-day time frame, like, look at this, right? Like, it's like money is not even flowing back. If you go back to, right, like under these conditions, we see this. Like, I'm not really sure how I can like not be bullish ETH, right? The ETH BTC ratio. And if you go to like the burn aspect, let's say in the past 30 days, right? We have OpenSea, right? Like doing a bunch of volume. We have Manifold, right? Which is like the open edition thing I talked about, and then Uniswap a bunch. But basically, right, in the past 30 days, people have been using Uniswap and buying NFTs. And I think that's like a pretty good trend that people should watch. And I mean, look at this, right? This is very, very positive. And obviously I hold things like Try Crypto as a hedge against Bitcoin dominance, even though I'm like way more bullish ETH BTC, at 0.071. And I think for me, I think the highest Bitcoin dominance can get is like, let's say like the 55 to 50% range. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I think it could happen. But I don't think it can get anywhere above this, unless like some I don't know, like a bunch of countries buy BTC, and maybe that can be like its own narrative on its own. But if Bitcoin dominance goes something like this, then I'm going to convert all my Try Crypto into Ether. That's generally my views. And people have been looking at the 0.05-ish range for ETH BTC, and if we go somewhere here, I would also convert all my Try Crypto into Ether. I just hold Bitcoin as a hedge against Bitcoin dominance, right? Because I really don't want to be the type of person that is like full-time crypto and Bitcoin dominance is going to 50% and I hold zero Bitcoin. That would be like max pain. I guess there's another form of max pain which I've been experiencing, which is this, where my biggest bag isn't really moving. I mean, it's moving, but it's just like not moving as much, which is like very frustrating. But those are like generally my thoughts on ETH BTC. In Bitcoin dominance, I get a bunch of questions on that, so I just wanted to address it. And arguments for a bottom or not for a bottom. Obviously, everyone has their own views, but if you kind of zoom out, right? Whenever the weekly RSI for Bitcoin hits 30 and then crosses the 50 threshold, probably a good time to buy Bitcoin, right? Same can be set for here, right? 30 crosses 50. Maybe this is a false signal initially, but basically, if you bought it back then, right, you were happy, and we just crossed the 50 threshold. I guess if you kind of zoom in, right, following the surge off the bottom in 2019, we kind of consolidated in the 55 to 60-ish range for the RSI, which is where we are now. So maybe, we can kind of pause here before, going higher and, really, scaring the bears. But, like I said, right now I'm in just let everything ride mode. I'm not really thinking about taking profits. If I get burned, I get burned. But I didn't really buy all my coins in the past 7 months to sell now because I'm like scared about the downside. In fact, I think bears should be scared about the upside, to be honest. But I naturally lean more bullish and more optimistic than the average person from my experience. So just take everything I say with a grain of salt. Like I mentioned, none of this financial advice. My biggest bag is XMON, and it's not doing anything. So obviously, I have no idea. Like I don't have like a strong pulse into the markets. And I have to reconsider my positioning and think about how I should be allocated moving forward. But like I mentioned, for SUDO and Blur, I guess we'll see what happens right in the coming weeks. We have the Super Bowl ad for Digidaigaku coming on the 12th. Maybe that can bring more attention if crypto price is going up. Then the Blur drop happens in the 14th. That can incentivize activity. And then once SUDO drops, we can do some liquidity mining for NFTs. I feel like there's a bunch of strong catalysts for NFTs that are kind of staggered that can help elevate the NFT volume. And if something like this does not happen, then I would be wrong, right? Something like this does not happen, I would be wrong. But NFTs are such a small market cap that it's not going to take that much volume to move the markets. It just needs people. The NFT market just needs people to just go further out in the risk spectrum, which might be a big ask, right? But I think it's going to happen at some point, and I'm just waiting for it to happen while I underperform everyone else. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the description below. And like I mentioned earlier, right, link to the premium Discord is in the description below. I make daily updates, 3 videos a week, and you also get access to a community of like over 500 people, right? I think it's pretty cool. But don't copy trade me because I obviously I'm underperforming. But maybe you can learn a lot more from like the people in there. So that's about it. We'll see how Bitcoin does. We'll see how ETH does. I think it's promising that the LSD narrative is continuing to go upwards. I think, you know, if Lido ETH can break this, right? Yeah, if Lido ETH can break this, I think that's gonna mean good things for other narratives, because if the narrative that kickstarted the bull market continues to be strong, it's going to give more confidence for other narratives to piggyback off of Lido's strength. And that's what I'm looking for. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys maybe next month or in a couple weeks. There's actually a lot of stuff happening now, so maybe I have enough content to talk about. Bye-bye.